Hello, I'm Derek Welsman. I am rector of the Priory Churches, which is Esbourne, Lodsworth and Selham, and we're here today to introduce to you our new assistant curate, Liz Yonge, who will be joining us for the next 3.5 years. So Liz, welcome to our parish. Do you want to say a little bit about you and the family?
I will do. So I am Liz, as you rightly said. I'm married to my long-suffering and very lovely husband, Alan. It's our 20th wedding anniversary later on this year, if I make it that far. We have 4 lovely children, 2 14-year-olds, a 10 and a 6-year-old. So we will be staying in our house in Chichester, and I will be commuting up to you here every day during my curacy. So
wonderful, and some of the nicest roads to drive on as well. So how exciting is that? So to begin our small segment together today, the question is, where did it all begin, your Christian journey?
Well, my parents do believe in God but weren't churchgoers, so I'm very much a mission kid, to be honest. I was lured into church by the sweets of Sunday school, which led to Girls' Brigade. I sang in a church choir, and then I went to youth club for more sweets and access to boys, if I'm really honest. So I can't remember a time when I didn't believe in God. I remember very distinctly one day going to church, and we had a big bank of daffodils outside one of the churches. I remember looking at that and thinking, that can't be an accident, and that's the basis of my belief, really. I just don't believe that those beautiful daffodils on that beautiful morning could just be here. So I've always believed in God, but I guess I was learning but not really engaging as a child. I learnt the stories, but I didn't make that personal commitment until much later. So I drifted away like most people. I went to church in my uni years, drifted away in my 20s while I was doing my career, and often, tired on a Sunday morning, fell away. But it all changed when I had twins, actually. So I had premature twins that were born very early, at 25 weeks, and were very sick in the intensive care. And one night it was touch and go as to whether my son would last the night. So when you're in intensive care, however much your career has been important to you, at that moment, none of your money, none of your big house, none of your car, none of anything that you've so far put your trust in means anything, actually. And you realise that the only thing that really matters are these 2 little babies in a plastic box in front of you, and that actually they have all along been a massive gift, and the only thing you can do for them at that point is to pray. So that's what I was doing at 3 a.m. in the intensive care unit, and while I was doing that, I just had an absolute sense, like a weight and a presence and a glow and a voice and just a complete knowing that actually God was there. It was a moment where I could feel God saying, I am here, and not that the babies would be okay or any promises. It was just knowing that I wasn't alone in that moment. And awful as that whole experience was, it's actually been the bedrock of everything that's happened since, because from that moment I know that there is a God now. It's not a case of belief in me. My faith and belief is having faith that we have a good God that is always working for our benefit. But as soon as I had that experience, once you know God exists, you then obviously have to go and put the work in and find out. I wanted to find out more about this God and what he's done and what I could do in exchange, I suppose. At that point I kind of thought, well, he must want something from me. What would that be? And so I went back to church to try and find out a little bit more.
Wonderful. It's amazing, isn't it, how these experiences help us to encounter God. So if that's the kind of beginning of your Christian journey, what about your call to ordained ministry?
Well, that was a little bit later, not too much later, to be totally honest. So sadly, being a Christian doesn't guarantee that nothing bad will happen to you in the rest of your life. It just guarantees you've got a bit of company for the journey, but and unfailing hope. But probably about 6 months after the kids were born, I found myself having to leave the job that I had really, really loved. I was really invested, so it was a massive grief for me. And I just went back to basics and thought, right, okay, I've got an opportunity here. This has ended. I can now start again. What did I always want to be? And so I started thinking, and then I just had this voice where I was saying, you could become a vicar. And I literally laughed out loud, thinking, what a ridiculous thing. I'd only just gone back to church and I didn't know anything about, that kind of stuff. But actually, that was 13 years ago, and actually over time, I became more involved in the church and other people asked me to do things. I ended up becoming a children youth worker. And I guess I did try for a long time to bargain my way out of having to join the priesthood by sort of thinking, right, well, maybe I could just use my finance skills in a charity position or not for profit. But I've always felt called on, and I guess over time I realised that being a vicar wasn't a job that God wanted from me, but actually being called to the priesthood is God calling me to who he intended me to be all along. And it's not a set of functions, it's just who I am. And the more that I've spent time at Cuddesdon and learned more about theology and spent more time with people and other clergy, the more I've realised that actually when I look back over everything that's followed,